Hello, beautiful friends, and welcome back to the Intuition Activation Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica, a spiritual medium and intuitive coach, and I'm so excited that you're here to join me for this intuitive development journey. How are you guys? I am so excited to record this episode for you today. The idea for this episode just came flying into my head about 3 minutes before I decided to record this episode. I actually had a different episode planned and in mind, but this one came through. Guys, if you haven't listened to the energy forecast that went out yesterday, I highly recommend you go back and listen to it because the energy this month is so beautiful. And really, I know that I'm a spiritual medium, so it's weird hearing this coming from my mouth, but the guides are so front and center this month. They're so forward. They have so much to say, and they are guiding every step of my life, whether I'm asking for it or not. They really are coming in with all the insights and the ideas, and they're just really, really front and center this month. And so this is really the month where connecting to your intuition is going to be so much easier than it ever has been before. And I really think that, this is the month to really start just paying attention to those signs, those messages, those synchronicities. And even if you're in, I almost feel like you're not going to even have to put as much effort into it as you ever have in the past because the energy is just so palpable this month. I know for me, even in just the last 2, 3 days, these synchronicities and the things, the divine intervention that has happened in my life this week has been so insane. And that is really what I want to talk about this week. I want to talk about, well, I'm definitely going to share the crazy things that happened to me this week. But this week's episode, I really want to share the ways in which spirit guides have shown up in my life, offered me advice, and things that have actually played out right away and given me insane results. So, the things that spirit guides told me to do, and that I did them in blind faith, not knowing how they were going to turn out, and getting really absolutely magical, crazy, and pretty much immediate results by doing so. And the thing that is really exciting with this, I have about 4 different stories for you that I'm going to share. And the way that the spirit guides came in and offered me these messages are some of them are very different ways from each other. And I'm hoping that as you hear them and the ways that spirit guide has played a role in my life, you're going to see that maybe just one of these ways has already shown up for you in your life and that you can recognize that something similar to this has happened to you as well. So I'm hoping this won't feel so out of like the realm of normal for you that you'll recognize a piece of yourself in one of these stories and kind of go, oh, I've definitely heard something that or had something like that happen to me before. What would have happened if I had listened to that idea or that intuitive download? So I'm hoping this acts as inspiration for you. I'm also just excited to share these stories because I have really never shared these stories specifically on the podcast, I don't think. If I have, I'm sorry for the repeat. I really don't think I have, but guys, there has been some serious magic that's shown up in my life since I really started listening to and taking the advice of my guides, even when it was unsolicited advice. So I'm going to get started and share. And I'm almost trying to decide here on the fly if I should go in order of when these things happened or if I should just do like the most magical one. No, I think I'm going to go in order. I think I'm going to go in order because there's a build up here. So the most recent one happened just like yesterday. So I will share that one right at the end because they almost get more magical each time because over time, as I've grown, I've learned to trust those intuitive downloads more and more and to take action on them faster and faster and in real time. Versus what you'll see from the first story is that it takes me some time to receive the message. So you're going to see sort of the progression that I had to go through to it feeling like the spirit guides are giving me pure magic in the moment. So let's go back a little bit. And this first story is from when I was first married to my husband. So I was about 25 or 26 years old. I guess it was almost a year after we were married. So I think I was around 26. And this was when I was just starting to go on my spiritual awakening, intuitive development journey. So I was still a teacher at this point. I was still on sick leave because I had injured I had had a concussion and then had injured my knee. I hadn't even gone back to work yet post injury. So it was in this period where I was really just trying really hard to develop my intuition, to practice working with a mentor, and really just trying to even see my guides, hear my guides, and get advice on what I'm supposed to do. So at this point, I hadn't even decided that I was going to quit teaching. I think that I was just looking for a way. I think at this point, I was just looking for a way to make my life feel a little bit easier and wanting to potentially quit teaching it down the road. And so at this point, like I really wasn't clear on anything, right? All I knew is that I didn't really love teaching anymore. I wanted to find a way to do something different. I had probably already started dabbling in some other types of businesses because, again, the messages weren't coming through very clearly and strongly from my guides, and just looking for solutions to make my life feel easier. So at this point, my husband and I had been married for a full year, and our 1 year lease had come up on the apartment we were renting. Now, the apartment that we were renting was, for a newly married couple, was too expensive, especially because my husband was in school and I was the only breadwinner for the two of us, which meant that I was not only working a full-time job as an elementary school teacher, I was then tutoring students almost every evening from about 4 to 9 p.m. every night. So I was leaving my house at sometimes 7 in the morning and not coming home till after 9 p.m. at night. Guys, I was working myself into the ground. It was too much to keep up with the expense of the apartment we were renting, plus food and all of the other things. And then I would just spend my whole weekend preparing for the week ahead because there was no way that I could meal prep and do anything else once I got home from school. It was like go to bed and do it all again. I was so burnt out and so stressed out. And so I definitely got this notion, this idea of, we need to move into a cheaper apartment. We need to live somewhere that's more affordable than this. And really, in the city of Toronto, which is where we were living, well, just outside of Toronto, rent is expensive. Like everything is expensive. And the only way we were going to get something cheaper than what we were living in was to rent out a basement apartment. I was super not into this idea. The idea of living in a basement seemed awful. I need sunlight. I like nature. And it just didn't feel feasible. And the other thing that was becoming an issue for us renting a basement apartment is that most of those apartments only offered one parking spot, if any parking spots, which meant that, and my husband and I were traveling to two different places every morning, we needed both cars, and we didn't know what that was going to look like. So I kind of had this in my mind that, like, if we are going to rent a basement apartment, it needs to have this very long list of very specific things. And I was not into manifestation at this point. I was very specific about, like, if we are going to be happy in a new living space, this is what we need to do. And my list was, I wanted it to be a walkout basement so that it had real natural light. That was really important to me. If it was going to only offer one parking spot, then it had to be walking distance to one or both of our places that we need to be. So my husband's chiropractic college and or the elementary school I was working at. So it needed to be walking distance for one of us so that we could get rid of one of our cars. And again, which would reduce expenses for us as well. And it needed to be significantly more affordable than where we were currently living. I wasn't going to move myself into a basement if it was only marginally cheaper than where we currently were. So those were sort of my things, right? And again, I was really trying very hard to like figure out how this was going to happen. And I kind of at that point was also really stepping into this thing of divine intervention, this feeling of blind faith. And if it's meant for me, it will happen for me and it will just kind of come through. And again, this is well before, this is at the very beginning of a spiritual awakening for me. So didn't know anything about manifestation, didn't know anything about, or only very gently tapping into and getting very few, seldom messages from spirit guides at this time. So this is how the message then came through for me from my spirit guides, which was this. At the beginning of a spiritual awakening, the messages come through other people, through videos, through things or images or messages coming to you or media coming to you in repetition. Okay. So for me at that time, I don't know why there was a period of time where I was very obsessed with watching YouTube videos about people who had bought and built tiny homes for themselves. I thought that they were so beautiful. I thought I loved the minimalistic lifestyle, and I really just enjoyed watching the tours of these tiny homes and dreaming about one day owning a tiny home for myself because it felt so unfeasible that I would ever be able to afford my own house in the city of Toronto one day. It just didn't seem possible with the way that mortgages were. I'm going to tell you how we ended up getting our first house because that's also a very magical story in this episode. Anyways, that being said, in those videos, there was something that stood out to me that I had noticed, which was that there seems to be a lot of rules about where you can park a tiny house. And one of the things that I was noticing in these videos and the videos that were popping up is that people were getting to rent the land that they were staying on for cheaper in exchange for maintaining the land that they were working on. So if they were parking their tiny house on a farm, they were living there for free or for way cheaper in exchange for doing farm chores, for example. And I remember like that stuck out to me. This was something that was like, that's so intriguing. I never thought that you could make an arrangement like that. It never sort of occurred to me that that's something that could be done, that you could get a cheaper rent in exchange for, maintaining the property, if you will. And so then we sort of got this, we kind of started to like look for places, right? To look for basement apartments, and nothing was anything cheaper than what we were currently paying for rent in the apartment building we were living in. And so it just felt like a lost cause, but I knew I really wanted to reduce our expenses and make life easier on me while my husband still had 3 more years of school. I think he had three more or two more. I think he had 2 more years of school at that point and was not going to be making significant income of any kind. It was still going to be on me. I just wanted that noose taken off from around my neck, if you will. And I just kept at that time, although I had a hard time hearing my guides, I definitely believed that they were there at that moment. And I just kept putting that out to my guides. Please, if we are supposed to have a basement apartment, like here's my list of things I want, like make it happen, if you will. And I had this idea to tell my husband. And again, this felt like an idea. It didn't feel like a divine intervention, didn't feel like an intuitive download, just a random idea that popped into my head while I was walking one day. I was out going for a walk in the park, and this idea dropped in. Guys, this is how intuitive downloads can come in. But I didn't chalk it up to an intuitive download at the time, but I had this idea to tell my husband to post in the Facebook group where all the students, all for student housing, or all the students kind of had a group Facebook for his chiropractic college were, and just to ask if there were any graduating students who were giving up their apartments that were living near the school. Maybe we could find an apartment that way. And so my husband was like, I don't know, like it's too far away from graduation. Is anybody really going to be answering us for that? And he kind of hummed and hawed because it was, it was still early. It was several months away. He's like, those aren't really going to be coming up for a few more months. And I was like, just do it. Just post in this Facebook group, see if anybody is leaving their apartment or if they know of anybody who's looking to lease their basement apartment. And it just so happened that somebody responded to his ad and said, actually, there's an apartment that I was staying in. I graduated already a year prior, and I think it's still sitting open because it was a basement apartment that was housing 3 students. So it has 3 bedrooms. It's a walkout basement, but they haven't been able to find 3 students all at once. So it's been sitting open all year. And the couple who lives upstairs, who owns the house, they've been looking and asking everybody in the neighborhood if there's any students who need a place to stay. And maybe you should go and check them out. As far as I know, it's still sitting vacant. And so we were like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. So we went to go and visit. And it was a really nice apartment. It had 3 full bedrooms. It was walkout. It backed onto a ravine. There was a river running right through the back of it. It was on this beautiful walking trail. So much light, so gorgeous, so expensive, guys, because they had split the rent between 3 separate students. And I was like, this is not cheaper than the apartment we're currently staying in. It's more expensive. There's no way we can stay here. And it had one parking spot, but it was literally 1 minute walk from the chiropractic college where my husband was going to school. And so everything, all the other boxes checked, but this one thing didn't. And while we were there, while we were sitting there talking to the owner who lived upstairs in the main house, this thought, this memory from these YouTube videos that I had been watching popped into my head, right? And it kept coming up. And it was almost like, say the thing, ask her if you can do some housework in exchange for rent. Ask if you can help with maintaining the property in exchange for rent. And I just kept hearing this in the back of my mind until finally the lady who owned the house mentioned how they had people, professional people who, gardeners who would come and mow the lawn, and it was so expensive. And she said it out loud. And I was like, okay, I gotta say something. And I said, oh, my husband and I were really good at doing that kind of stuff. Would you consider reducing our rent if we agreed to mow the lawn, rake the leaves, and shovel the driveway in the winter? And she was so thrilled with that idea. She loved it. She was willing to reduce the rent by half. She was so excited to not have three different students, but a married couple living down there, that she was already willing to reduce the rent. But then when we said that, that even just brought it home for her even more. She was able to not have to hire out for another year these gardeners, and that we would just mow the lawn and shovel the driveway. And she reduced the rent by half. So we got this apartment. And guys, this felt so magical to me. Again, they felt like at the time ideas coming in, but I don't think that it was a coincidence that I happened to be watching those videos that week, that I happened to have the idea while I was going for a walk for my husband to post in that group, that I happened to have that nudge, that little thing in the back of my mind telling me to say the thing, offer this idea in the meeting with the landlord. I think all of those things were my guides talking to me. I just didn't know they were my guides at the time. And that's how we ended up with this killer basement apartment, 3 full bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, walkout basement onto a beautiful ravine. Literally, guys, there were deers in our backyard every morning. It was so gorgeous. We loved living there. It was so quiet. And the people who lived upstairs were like this older couple. They didn't like, you couldn't hear them. It was fantastic. If you had to live in a basement apartment, this was the place to live. And we were able to reduce our expenses, which meant that next year I was able to switch from full-time teaching to substitute teaching and give myself the breathing room I needed to build up a business for myself and not have to teach. And after only 1 year of living in that basement apartment, I quit teaching altogether. And I didn't have to worry about expenses because it was, even though I was only just building my business, because our living expenses went so much lower from moving into this apartment. So there was definitely a lot of divine intervention in us getting this apartment. So that was my first sort of experience of things just like lining up and ideas coming through that felt like they were almost outside of me, but popping in at just the right time. So that's my first one. Guys, these stories get even crazier as they go on, and the messages from my guides get a little bit louder. So now I'm going to fast forward to, we had already been living in this basement apartment for almost 2 years. So my husband was getting pretty close to ready to graduate. And it was COVID at this point. So COVID had hit. It was 2020, I believe, or maybe, I think we were kind of well into 2020, if not almost heading towards 2021. I'm not sure exactly, but definitely I was getting ready or had already quit my job, or I can't really remember. I think I might have already quit my job, but we were still living in this basement apartment. I was building my business very slowly connecting to my guides. And we were stuck at home, and my husband was not ready to have children, but I super was wanting children. And he was right. I knew we weren't financially in a place where we could be having kids, but I was bored and I wanted a baby. So I channeled my energy into really wanting a dog. And so it was in the middle of COVID. I don't know if anybody else experienced this, but definitely where we were living, everybody decided they wanted a dog during COVID. And so therefore the prices jacked up intensely. They were really high and really expensive, but also it was really hard to get a dog. It was really hard to find a dog anywhere nearby because all of the kennels were people were adopting dogs left, right, and center. All the breeders were booking 2 years out. Everywhere I looked, anywhere I tried, I could not get a dog for 2 years. And guys, I wanted a dog now. I don't know what came over me. I don't know what it was. Call it nesting syndrome, call it, I don't know. I was desperate to have a dog. And I had always pictured that one day we would have a dog. I actually very specifically wanted a golden doodle. I'd always wanted a golden doodle. And I really felt like I need to make this happen. So at this point, I had already started my business as a spiritual medium. I was already fairly regularly connecting with the guides of other people, but not as often connecting with my own guides, I would say. Or maybe I was. Actually, I would say I was fairly regularly. So at this point, when I was trying and failing to get a dog, and anybody I contacted, any kennel or breeder that I was connecting with was like booking for 2 years out, just wasn't working. And I started looking on things like Kijiji, which I don't think you guys have in the States if you're listening from the States. I feel like what's the American equivalent to Kijiji? Craigslist, I think. Looking on Craigslist for dogs, just doing anything I could to find a dog, and there was nothing. I was coming up short and just could not find a dog that was going to be available at anything less than 2 years from then. And so I decided, you know what? I'm gonna ask my spirit guides. I'm gonna ask my spirit guides and see if they can give me a clue on how I can get this dog. How can I get my golden doodle puppy? I really want my golden doodle puppy. So I sat in meditation. I, imagined myself walking through a forest, right? Doing the things I do, grounding myself, calling in my spirit guides, asking them to come join me. And when I felt that energy that they were there, I then asked them out loud, please share with me, how can I find my dog? How do we get my golden doodle puppy? I really want one. And it came through actually very clearly the message. And the message they gave to me was extend your search. You're only looking within I think I was looking within a 20-kilometer radius, I would say, of places. They said get on Kijiji and extend your search to within 100 to 200 kilometers. You might have to drive a bit, but you're going to get your dog if you extend your search. And that's all it took, guys. I went onto Kijiji. I extended my search by 100 kilometers. And sure enough, there was a family. And guys, this is definitely not the best way to get a dog. It's a little bit sketchy. They said that it was like a mistake that their golden retriever breeded with the neighbor's poodle. BS. They for sure were like backyard breeders trying to make a quick buck during COVID. So possibly not the most ethical way to get a dog. I knew nothing about having a dog at the time. But so if you are really like a dog enthusiast on this podcast, sorry, don't hate me. I had no idea what I was doing. But either way, it was just somebody on Kijiji who had posted our dog got pregnant by its neighbor. We have all these puppies. We're trying to get rid of them. And they were actually in Barrie, which is currently now the city that we're living in, which is about an hour and a bit just outside of Toronto. And she said, she was willing to drive halfway down to us. Would we meet her on the side of the highway in Newmarket, which is like halfway between where we were and where she was. And she had one puppy left. She had already promised all the puppies to other people. She had one boy puppy left. Would we drive up and get it to her? I hadn't seen the puppy. I hadn't seen pictures of the parents. I didn't see anything. And I just said, yes, we're going to get this puppy. My spirit guide said so. So we did. We drove and we met her on a parking lot on the side of the highway. We handed her cash and she handed us our dog, Joey. This cute little adorable golden doodle male puppy. Now, the only downside of this was that she told us that this was going to be a medium-sized dog. He was the only male of the litter, and so we thought we were getting a maximum 40-pound dog. Joey is 85 pounds, you guys. He's a big dog. So it's not what we expected, but we love him and we're so happy with him. And he actually played a big role in us being able to get our house, and I'll tell you how that happened. But if it hadn't been for me sitting in meditation, connecting with my guides and asking them for advice on how do I get this dog, and without that very specific tidbit, we wouldn't have been able to get a dog as soon as we did. We got it the next day, literally the next day. We got our dog after my guides shared with me that little tidbit. So that was definitely my one where it was like a very intentional. I sat in meditation and received a download that felt so simple and I hadn't thought of it. So that's how we ended up with our dog Joey, and we still have him and we still love him. He drives us crazy, but we love him. And so that one was also a very magical experience. Now, the next one is almost even more wild. And I really do believe that spirit guides, God, the universe, saw the bigger picture when it came to us getting this dog. It seems so strange now. My husband also still doesn't know what came over me when I decided I needed a dog and I needed one now. Because I knew even at the time, like logically, it didn't make sense. Financially, it didn't make sense. Like, why did I need a dog? We're living in this basement apartment, and my husband's still in school, and I'm, just starting a business. Like, and we want to eventually have kids, in the next couple of years. Like, it didn't make sense to get a dog at that moment, but something came over me. And I also think that that was an intuitive download. I do think that I was being guided in that moment. And that's going to become very clear in this next story, which is how we actually bought our first house. And Joey was a part of it, guys. It's so crazy. And I think that, God knew that we needed to have this dog in order for us to get into a different situation where we needed our house and to get us into that place where we got our house. So I didn't see it for myself, but it felt very magical. And so now we're going to fast forward several years. I would say about 2 years. I think it was about 2 years. So after my husband graduated from sorry, from chiropractic college, we were going to continue to live in our basement apartment. However, I think what had happened? Oh, I think it was that we just didn't want to be paying the rent and we had decided to start our family. So I had gotten pregnant with our first son, Noah. And I knew I wanted to have a home birth, and I didn't really want to have a home birth in a basement. And my parents didn't want me to have a home birth in a basement. I don't know, something around that. And so they invited us to live with them and to save money, save up for our own house while we were working. And yeah, to come and live with them. So we spent 1 year, it was, I would say it wasn't a full year. We spent better part of a year living at my parents' house, and then a little bit of time, I say about 6 months, living at Ellie's, my husband's parents' house, as a way to just save up money to get a down payment for our own house. Now, guys, the thing about living in Toronto, and I need to reiterate this, post COVID, and even prior to that, and we were even just outside of Toronto, right? A little bit north of Toronto. The housing market is absolutely ridiculous. The cost of living here is just not doable for young couples who are just starting out. And to put things in perspective for you, a 2-bedroom townhouse, okay, with a single car garage was going for 1.5 million to start, okay? An apartment, a condo was a million, 1.1 million, okay? So the amount of money you would need in a down payment to have your very first starter home, townhouse, even condo was a huge undertaking to save up for something like that. And it just felt like the more we saved, the more that right, the higher the house prices were getting. And then we had a lot of friends who were living with their parents or who had parents helping them out to get their first house because it was the only way. There was like no other way to save up the amount of money you needed to get a down payment for a house. So we were kind of in this place where our family was growing. We wanted to have more children. We didn't want to be living in our parents' house any longer. And we were desperate to get our own place to live. And we had kind of, living with family can be challenging, and we didn't really want to go in the renting route again. And besides, on top of that, Joey had grown to his massive size, and many people didn't want to rent to a family that had a dog that big, I guess for fear of it ruining the property. I don't really know. So we were very desperate to find our own place to live. Noah was a little baby, and we were just having such a hard time. Now, at this time, some other things happened in my husband's job, that he was working for a chiropractor in Toronto, and he just wasn't experiencing the amount of success that he was hoping for in working for this person. So he started to look for other jobs. And he did find 2 other jobs that were about an hour north of where we were living. It was in Barrie, Ontario, which is where we are. One was in Barrie and one was in another place 30 minutes away from there, but it was a significant commute. And so we were living in, just outside of Toronto, and my husband was driving like an hour there and an hour back every day to go to work at these 2 different chiropractic clinics. And thank goodness he was doing really well. And we were making a significant amount of money, enough that we were able to kind of pile up somewhat of a decent down payment for a home. but still not enough to afford the prices in the area we were living. And so we were kind of going for ourselves and kind of going, why are we doing this? You're going to be staying at these clinics. An hour outside of Toronto is so much more affordable than where we are. We love being by the lake, and that the city of Barrie is right on the water. Let's start looking for houses up there. So we did. We started looking for houses up in Barrie where my husband's clinic was. And we found one, and we found one that we loved. We found one that we loved. And here's the thing with though, is that in this time, I guess it was a seller's market because we put an offer in on this house and they must have priced it really low because there were 18 other offers that we were competing with. This house that we loved, 18 other offers. And we had a limit that we could go to from our lender, from our mortgage broker. And it was sort of like, you can't go beyond this limit. So you can offer this much more, but you can't go beyond that. So we offered the top end of our budget, the top end of what we could. And we got into, there were only, what they were going to do was evaluate all the offers. And then they were only going to pick the top three and give them a round two to up their offer if they wanted to. Now, of all of the offers, we were actually the fourth highest. So we technically weren't in the running to be the top three. However, for some reason, they wanted to put us in and offer the fourth people an opportunity to up their ante. So we were the fourth ones. And so they let us kind of up our ante and raise our price. And our real estate agent at the time encouraged us to write a letter to the sellers, telling them our story, how we were a young family, my husband was commuting, we wanted him to be home, we wanted more kids. And so we wrote this letter, this sob story letter about how my husband was commuting so much and we wanted to have more time as a family and blah, blah, blah. And just before we submitted the letter, I had this intuitive download. And now at this point, I knew what an intuitive download felt like. It felt like an idea would drop into my mind, would light up my body and make me feel really excited about it. And it didn't make sense all the time, but I at that point knew when it was coming from my spirit guides because it would drop in over again and over again and over again. So I was crafting this letter and this message from my guides came in that said, add a picture of your family. And so I added a picture of our family and then it said, and add a picture of Joey, our dog. And I was like, why would they care if we have a dog? My guides are like, add a picture with the dog, add a picture with the dog, add a picture with the dog. And I'm like, okay. So I asked my husband if we had a picture of all of us, the three of us with the dog. And he's like, he didn't. So he's like, let's make it super cute. We had many pictures of the baby with the dog. So we did a picture of us as a family of three and then a picture of the baby and the dog. So they knew we had this golden doodle. And so we submitted the letter. And guys, you're not going to believe this. This is the craziest part. We were not the highest offer. Okay. After they allowed the second round to go through, we were not the highest offer. They decided to give it to us because the owners of this house had a dog that looked exactly like our Joey. It was a male white golden doodle who had passed away just months before they put their house on the market and they were missing their dog. And it felt so divine that they should give the home to a family who had the exact same dog as them. It reminded them of their dog, that even though we were nowhere near the top offer, they gave it to us because they loved their dog so much and ours looked exactly like theirs. Guys, I can't make this stuff up. This is how we got our first house because my guides told me to include a picture of our dog in this letter. Okay. It's so wild and so magical and so insane. And so out of 18 offers, even though we were not the highest offer by significant amount of money, that we were not the highest offer, they gave it to us because I included a picture of my dog because my guides told me to. So I truly believe that the inspiration for me to get the dog was really amazing. How we got the dog, my guides had a hand in this, and then how we got our house is my guides had a hand in that too. So it's just so amazing. So that one was more like as I was writing the letter, just an intuitive download, just a feeling of just a voice in the back of my head, include a picture, and it lit me up and it made me feel excited. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna include a picture. And that's how that one came through. So those are my three very big wow, like my spirit guides got me a dog, my spirit guides got me an apartment, my spirit guides got me a house. And those are my biggest ones. I still to this day say my spirit guides got me a house. My spirit guides and my dog got me a house. And it's just so crazy what happens when you start listening to those downloads, when you know how to recognize them and you know what they feel like in your body, and then you know to take action on them. So that brings me to earlier this week. And this one is one where I actually doubted myself. I doubted the download at first. And this one, and I'm trying to think like, why did I doubt it? Maybe because I, I'll share the story and then you'll understand because it didn't make sense why the download was coming in the first place. So as you guys know, this year has been a bit of a roller coaster with us for nannies, for having babysitters, for having someone to watch the kids. While on the days that I'm working, I need, just 3 hours, a couple of days a week to have time to work with clients and to record this podcast and things like that. And unfortunately, the nanny that we found and we love and who we've had for the last 6 months or so graduated from school and managed to land a really amazing job. And so she is leaving us and she just let us know, informed us that she just got a new job. And when can she tell them that her start date is going to be? How soon can we find a new nanny so that she can go? And as sad as we are to see her go, I'm excited for her to step into her real career. But now we're stuck again trying to find a new nanny. And so the last couple of weeks I've been posting on Facebook groups and, speaking to nanny agencies and just not being able to find someone who was able to do the hours that we needed or the price that we were wanting or just, it's just been a little bit of slim pickings the last couple of weeks. And this weekend, our nanny was like, I really need to give them a date. Like, I kind of need like 2 weeks. Like I can really only give you 2 more weeks is kind of the thing. And I was like, okay, really got to find a nanny. So then on Sunday, so this was like just 2 or 3 days ago, my husband went golfing with some buddies. So I decided to take my two little boys to a park that we haven't gone to in a very long time. And it was just a particularly nice day. And this park is by the water. We hadn't been there since last summer. And I don't know, I just had this like feeling of like, let's just go to this park. We haven't been here in a long time. It'll be fun. And so I don't know if I can chalk that up to a divine download, more of just like a wanting to go to that park because it was nice. And while we were at this park, the boys were just playing and this name kept dropping into my head. And I could not for the life of me figure out why I kept hearing this name in my head. And the name was Maya. Maya, Maya. And I was just like, that is a nice name. And I really thought that my guides were trying to tell me, guys, this is how off I was. I thought my guides were trying to tell me that if I had another child, that if I ever had a girl, that maybe I would name her Maya. And I was like, it is such a nice name and I really like it. I'm like, and it sounds so good with Noah, Benny, Maya. Like, that's super cute. I really love that name. It's so sweet. And so then I just hear that name in the back of my head thinking, that's a nice name. I'll put that in the back of my pocket, for another time. And then my older son decides he wants a snack and we go and sit on a bench to go and sit and have our snack. And when we're sitting on the bench, you know how there's benches that get dedicated to certain people who have passed away or whatever. We're sitting on this bench and this particular bench was dedicated in loving memory of somebody named Maya. I'm like, that's so weird. There's that name again. Why is that name coming up so much today? And then while we're sitting on the bench having our snack, there's a mom who yells across the playground to her little daughter named Maya. And so at this point, I'm like, I've now heard it 3 times, right? I heard it in my head. I saw it on the bench. I saw mom call out and I was like, okay, spirit guides, are you trying to tell me something? Like, why do I keep hearing this name Maya? Like, noted, if I ever have another kid, maybe I'll name them Maya, right? Like, that's what I thought my guides were trying to tell me is like, you're going to have another kid and you're going to name her Maya. I'm like, okay, cool. If I ever have a girl, one day, hopefully a little further down the road, we'll name her Maya. And I was just like, what's going on with that? And again, we're just sitting on the bench. My kids are kind of tired. They're zoning out. I'm zoning out. And we're just kind of watching the other children play. And I noticed that there's one young woman who's playing with these two other girls. And she very clearly looks like she's their babysitter and not their mother, just because she seemed too young to have children that old, just by the way that they were interacting with each other. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, it'd be so nice to have a babysitter like that, who's like young and taking them to a park. She also had a really big dog with them, like, and she's got their dog with them. Like, she would have been perfect for us. And that's when I hear it in the back of my head, really loud, guys. This was my guides. Like, I almost felt like they pushed me off the bench. It was so loud. They were like, go talk to her. Go talk to her. Go ask her if she wants a babysitting job. And I'm thinking, like, no, like, she clearly has another family that she's working for. Like, I'm not going to go and poach this woman from someone else. And my guides were relentless. I kept hearing back in my head, go talk to her. She's a nanny. Go talk to her. Go talk to her. So finally, I'd take my kids with me. She was over by the swings with the kids she was babysitting. I was like, hi, this is so strange and random, but are you their babysitter? She said, yes. I said, do you happen to be looking for another babysitting job? And she goes, always. I'm always looking for new babysitting jobs. And so then I told her my situation and would she be interested? And she said, actually, yeah, these kids I only babysit like every once in a while. I've been looking for more of a more consistent job. I would absolutely love to work with you guys if you're interested. Amazing. What's your name? I'll put it in my phone. Guys, her name is Maya. I can't make this stuff up. Her name is Maya, and she came over to the house today, Tuesday, to formally just like meet us and see if the job was right for her. She's starting next week. We have a new nanny, and my guides brought her to me. My guides were telling me her name the whole time we were there and then made me go talk to her. And now we have a new nanny, and she's perfect. She's everything I would want in a nanny. And the price was right, everything was right, and she was just amazing. And so, guys, this is what I mean that when you start listening to your intuitive downloads and you start to really recognize what they feel like, they like magic just happens in your life. Magic happens. And this seems to keep showing up in my life or in my mind. And it got to the point now where if there's something I want or something I need in my life, I've learned now that I can completely surrender and know that the download will come through in the right time that will lead me towards the thing that I'm needing or wanting. And I almost get to let go and surrender completely, knowing that God's got my back, the universe has got my back, and the only action I need to take are the actions I'm told to and inspired to do in that immediate moment. And otherwise, I don't have to do anything, right? My guides are making it happen. They put me in the right place at the right time that I happen to be at this particular park on a Sunday where I could run into this particular nanny. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to post on a Facebook group. I didn't have to reach out to a nanny agency. I didn't have to do anything, right? I just got put in the right place at the right time. And these things keep happening more and more. And so my bigger manifestations, I now know that I can just release it and know that it's happening for me. It's happening and it's going to happen in the perfect timing. And I just have to act on those little tiny nudges that I get at the back of my mind. Sometimes they're a little bit louder. If this one was particularly loud, my guides were like, go talk to her. But it's just so comforting to know like it's gonna happen. You just have to surrender. You don't have to put any effort, right? The universe has got your back. So those are my stories for you guys for this week, and I hope they've acted as inspiration for you. I always love to remind myself of these stories to see that really like there's so much magic at the other side of tapping into your intuition, and I hope this acts as inspiration for you. So I'm excited. I'm happy that to share these stories with you. Now, as promised, because this is a solo episode, I did want to offer you an intuitive development exercise, and I wanted to do something a little bit different for this episode because the last few exercises have been a little bit more of like a meditation with a visualization. This time, I actually want you to see how signs and symbols can show up in your life. And this is not going to be a channeling through immediately. You're going to see this pop up later on. Okay. So I am going to do a little activation in you guys, and I'm going to infuse it with an angel number. Now, guys, for those of you who don't remember, angel numbers are sort of like repeating numbers. So things like 1111 or 1111, 2222, right? 444, those kind of numbers. Okay. Now I'm going to have in mind one particular angel number, so repeating number pattern. And I'm going to activate it into you. And then I want you to just go through your life this week and see what angel number pops up in your life. And then I want you to message me on Instagram and see if, and tell me what the number is that you get. And then I will reveal the angel number in next week's episode. Okay. So we're going to do a little activation here. I'm going to infuse you with a sign and symbol, and the sign will represent when you do see it that your angels are with you, that your guides are with you, that source is with you, that you are a piece of source. And every time you see an angel number or this particular angel number, which I'm not going to disclose today, I want you to just trust that you're being supported and know that it's a sign that you are being supported and that your dreams are coming towards you. And you just have to hear those downloads when they come. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do this little activation for you. So if you're not driving, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and join me for a few deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. Deep breath in and release, relaxing your chest, and deep breath in and let it go, dropping your shoulders. And one more deep breath in and let it go, dropping everything down. And I want you to imagine that you're sitting in the middle of a beautiful meadow or in the middle of the night, covered and surrounded by a beautiful misty fog, as if the clouds have come down from the sky and completely surrounded you. There's a million stars in the sky and a beautiful crescent moon shining down. Feel the moonlight as it pours down over your skin, shining brightly. It feels a little brighter than usual in this vast open meadow. Feeling the grass cool and soft and refreshing beneath your bare feet and your legs as you settle in and sit cross-legged on this beautiful, luscious grass. And as you sit here in this beautiful meadow, you're going to imagine that you are completely surrounded by and encapsulated with this beautiful orb of healing, brilliant white light, as if you have an aura of white light and you are glowing and irradiating this orb of white light. It surrounds you, it encapsulates you, and you feel your whole body begin to hum and buzz and tingle and attune to the energy of this brilliant, healing, blinding white light that surrounds you. You feel as if you are completely surrounded by love and light, healing energy, the love of the universe, of Source, pouring over you and now pouring into you. Feeling that energy, that brilliant white light dropping down, pouring in through the top of your head, down through your chakra system, down in through your third eye and down through your throat and your heart space, glowing a little brighter in your heart space now. Pouring down through your solar plexus and your belly, your sacral chakra, and your root, pouring down and out through your tailbone and pouring into the earth, rooting deeply into the ground and anchoring you safely to the earth. You are completely surrounded and completely filled up and anchored and healed by this beautiful, radiant, healing white light. Taking one last deep breath here. And at this moment, I'd like to call upon all of your spirit guides, loved ones, ascended masters, angels, archangels, and all other beautiful, benevolent beings of light who walk with you in this lifetime to come and join you in this moment. And I ask that that they infuse you and your week ahead with a beautiful angel number that I am picturing in my mind and sending to you telepathically. Make it so that you see this number everywhere you go, unexpectedly and in different places. Make it glaringly obvious and standing out so that each and every one of you sees this number and feels it. So that you feel the love and support of your guides walking with you every step of the way. This angel number, which I have plastered on my forehead, on my third eye, transmitting from me to your guides coming through. Your guides are giving me a subtle nod, yes, absorbing this and agreeing to send this beautiful energy to you, allowing you to see the signs and symbols, this angel number, throughout the rest of your week. And with so much gratitude, if you're able to, place your hands together on your heart, thanking your guides for offering their presence, and taking one more deep breath and coming back into your space. And that's it, you guys. Ask and it is so. Your guides are going to send you this beautiful angel number throughout your week. Feel free to message me on Instagram at I am Jessica Rachel and let me know what the number is. Send in your guesses. What is the number that you get? And don't forget, guys, if you do rate and review the podcast, send me that 5-star review. I will send you a free access to my Meet Your Spirit Guides course. There were no new submissions this week, so please make sure that you do that, and I will gift that to you in the next one. Otherwise, I'm wishing you guys a beautiful, loving, brilliant, magical, and aligned week and month of May. And I will catch you guys in the next episode. Have a beautiful weekend, guys. Bye.